Today we find ourselves in Falmouth, Jamaica, which if you're not doing an excursion and you don't want to be robbed, there's really nothing to do here except shop. This was a port that was built by Royal Caribbean in conjunction with the Jamaican tourist board, that whole industry. And they came in and built this monstrosity. And it's just basically a series of shops, you know, just a little triangular peninsula that sticks off the coast. And you go through the cruise port here, and then it empties out into all these shops and whatnot. You can buy gems and knickknacks, and there's a place a little further down where you can do homemade stuff, wicker baskets and wooden carvings and stuff like that. But Royal Caribbean's getting a kickback for all this stuff because it's their baby, you know. So you feel like you're in some kind of legitimate port, but you're really not. There's really nothing to do here, because if you don't get an excursion, they tell you, yeah, you're welcome to go past the gates here in the inn, but you're on your own and you're in Jamaica, you know. Kind of a starved country for money, so you're going to be running into people that are going to covet your stuff more than you have it. So buyer beware there. So when you consider the fact that there's not much here to do unless you want to spend money on an excursion, and you really don't have that much time. You know, we landed, docked, whatever, 9 o'clock. Got to be back on the boat by like 3:30. So you can go to resorts, surrounding areas and whatnot, but it's like, how much time are you really going to have, and is it worth the money? So we're going to go walk up a waterfall for $150. Be my guest. I've done it. It's kind of dumb. But we're going to walk in all these shops and see what's going on, and see if there's anything of interest here in the actual pavilion, so to speak. So here's your craft fair. Surrounded by a bunch of shops. So let's talk about Falmouth, Jamaica. This port is just a man-made port that juts out from the city. It was built in like 2011 by Royal Caribbean. As I stated, they basically went to the tourism board or whatever it is and said, hey, let's spend $270 million to build this thing, and we'll get a cut of everything and all that. So Royal Caribbean, although they don't really announce it, they pretty much have their hand in the cookie jar with that entire port. And when you get off, you go through a main little security building, and then it empties out into all these shops. And I think I counted like at least 12 jewelry stores, which I'm always fascinated by why there's so many jewelry stores in these ports. It's weird that people would go, you know, to vacation and spend, you know, thousands of dollars on jewelry, but that's not my world, so maybe people are into that stuff more than I think. But other than that, it's just a bunch of like souvenir shops. It makes you feel like you're just in any other souvenir shop with Chinese goods. There's t-shirts and hats, and everything's got pot leaves and Bob Marley on it, and it's just like, yeah, people are, you know, they're not as pushy as Haiti, but they're very pushy in trying to get you to come in their store and buy stuff. And okay, you get this, and I'm like, do I look like I want to wear a pot shirt with Bob Marley on it? It's just, I want to wear red and yellow and orange or whatever it is, green. And so there's all this stuff. There's, you know, shot glasses and ashtrays and all this stuff. They're selling some liquor here and there. There's Red Stripe everywhere you can look. And then there's the craft fair portion that's got all this, what they say is mahogany, all this hand carved stuff. And went through and I watched a girl I watched a girl buy a ring that I listened to the conversation, and it's, oh, this ring is $750. What you crying about, girl? You know, what you buy the ring? You know, and it went from $750 very quickly to $350 to $150 to, or $180 to $150 to $120. She ended up paying $80 for this ring, and it was a fine ring and all. I don't know what its true value really is. It's hard to really discern with when you got that much, you know, discrepancy one way or the other. But listening to this whole bartering deal go on, they don't want you to leave, you know. She's like, well, let me think about it. I don't want you to think about it, you know, and I do a horrible Jamaican accent. And then, so after leaving that store, I see this dude sitting on the curb, and he's got all this wooden knickknacks, you know. It's all these dudes with dreadlocks, or it's a giraffe, or a turtle, or bowls, and little wooden shot glasses and stuff like that. And he's like, I make all this myself. I carve it all myself. And he's not carving anything. You would think if your job was carving stuff that you're selling, that you would continue to carve so that there was always more inventory coming in because you're selling stuff. But he's just sitting there and looking around. And I got to thinking, as I walk through these craft fairs, I'm like, every one of these booths have the exact same, let's say, artisan skill. So if that stuff is handcrafted, and I'm sure a lot of it is because it has to be, the bowls are obviously turned on lathes, but then they carve in, you know, the name around, you know, Jamaica or whatever. But everybody has the exact same skill level because all the art looks the same. It's really weird. It's when you get down to it, it becomes it's a horrible port. There's nothing to do. I mean, you get off and you're in this V-shaped, probably 7 or 8 acre area that's just all souvenir shops that are trying to get you to get something. And I would be willing to bet $1 million that Royal Caribbean is getting money. My understanding is they're getting like half the money somehow. Whether it's they're leasing this stuff, or, you know, they buy all the knickknacks that are being sold, and then they just get these authentic Jamaicans to, you know, peddle their wares, and then they get the cut back when it's sold. I don't know what the deal is, but there is a seedy underbelly to this whole operation. You get out to a certain point and you pass all the shops, and there's a couple big parking lots, and you realize that you're encased in a pretty tall spiked metal fence and with a gate, and you can't just walk out. I mean, you can, but it's shut. And as soon as you get up there, there's a bunch of dudes up there with like 3-wheeled bikes that are just really aggressively trying to get you to ride on their bike. And I'm like, I don't want to ride on your bike. I don't want to go out in this town where, you know, I've got to worry about getting robbed because we're in a third world country. So if you stay within the compound that they've got you on, that's great. You're safe. There's nothing to worry about. There's cops walking around. But there's also nothing to do. There's a Margaritaville that has like a pool. It's kind of weird. It's a restaurant, Margaritaville, but it also has a pool that you can use and all that stuff. But it looked run down as crap. It didn't look open. I don't think it was ever open while we were there. Like the TVs, you could see the TVs were taken off the wall of the bar. There was a big parrot just laying on the bar. And there was probably like a 4-foot parrot. Like, it was some stuff going on, so I don't know what's up with that. But it was open 3 or 4 days before we were there, and all. But, you know, the sun just destroys everything. So that place it's in need of a coat of paint, let's just say. But other than that, one business, there's just really nothing to do. And unless you're going to go on an excursion, walk up Dunn's River, or go to one of the nearby resorts. We met some people that went to a resort. They paid like $60 a person, I think it was, and they take a 20-minute bus ride to a resort with free food and drink and a pool and a lazy river. And it's like, okay, but you're only there from like 11 to 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, something like that. So you got like 5 hours. So 20-minute ride, you know, you're an hour in, you got 3 or 4 hours to hang out at this place before you got to be back. I don't know, it's just nothing really to do. So it's kind of a pissy port. So if you're looking for something really cool to do, that's really not the Jamaican way to see Jamaica. You're not going to get much out of that. But yeah. So 2 thumbs down to that. I don't think enough people are telling real truth about this port. There's nothing even pretty about it. I mean, you can't even see the scenery in the background that shows you anything that's like, oh, the beautiful mountains and all. It's just nothing to look at. And you know, I wonder to myself, like, you know, if these people weren't so, I mean, I get it that they live in poverty, so this money that they're selling from t-shirts and whatnot is sustaining them, and there's only a short window when they get boats, because it's a Royal Caribbean port. So one guy said they had 2 boats this week and then 1 next week, and that's the only time they're open. Lord knows what they do the rest of the time, but nevertheless, so they're kind of starving for this, you know, this monetary influx that comes into their little port town. But at the same time, it makes you wonder, like, you know, if they weren't so pushy, that really drives some people away. It intimidates people. They don't want to go anywhere near it, and all that. If they were just a little less pushy about stuff, I would think that they would get more sales, because they wouldn't drive so many people off. But it's a weird business model, because some of them can be kind of aggressive. And you want to be like, I don't want this stuff. I don't know what I would do with it. I mean, I don't have any use for this stuff. I'm just looking around at what you got going on down here, because there's nothing else to do. So, you know, I will say this, it was clean. It was kind of pretty, as far as, you know, the way they decorated it and all the brickwork and blocks and all that stuff. I mean, they did a good job with how it's laid out and all. There's just nothing to do. So that's my take on Falmouth, a port I probably will never return to. Giddy up.